Okay, it's a pleasure, a great pleasure to welcome you to this dedication. It's actually a landmark occasion for our mathematics department, and I have to say a highlight of my time as division chair. And it's great to be joined by so many colleagues from PMA, by the Pasadena Mayor Terry Tornick, Caltech trustees, and of course, Ron and Maxine Linde. And so we're here to dedicate this hall of mathematics and physics. And I just want to say a few brief words about what this renovation has meant for us in the division and here at Caltech. So mathematics is, of course, the language of science, and as Einstein put it, the poetry of logical ideas. We verse all our undergraduates in this language by making them take 3 whole terms as part of their core curriculum. And so pure mathematics is essential to our mission of teaching and of research at Caltech. However, at the time when I became division chair, our math department was struggling. It was for a number of reasons. Partly it's small. We have a small faculty in comparison to our competitors. And we'd had some bad luck with some retention issues. But I have to say, I think a large part of it was because of the really miserable space that the department had to live in. So I would get, I just had taken the job, and I got calls from key faculty we were trying to retain saying, my office smells like a sewer, what are you going to do about it? I said, okay, that's why I'm the division chair. And got a PhD in physics. Also, I had our young faculty complaining that their graduate students wouldn't come in after hours. They wouldn't work on the weekends because they couldn't make a cup of coffee. There was no place to hang out. And boy, you're in trouble when you can't get your graduate students to work at night. So in comparison to that, today, it really seems like a whole different department. Spirits are really high. We had a banner year. We had 2 excellent faculty accept our offers last year, and an additional one join us this year. If you walk through Linde Hall, you'll see people interacting, undergraduates from all options hanging out, doing their homework in the interaction spaces. And in the department, there's just a whole new sense of life and of optimism. And, I have to give credit to the math faculty. They've been working really, really hard, bringing appointments of great new faculty to me and to the division and the administration, and that's been great. But I have to say that the building has been a major part of this successful transformation. It's really helped us attract those great faculty. Our students are so much happier, and I just want to say that just in the period of a few years, it feels like night and day. And so I want to really extend my sincere personal thanks, and on behalf of the math department and the division, and in fact all the students, to Ron and Maxine for the gift that made this possible. And I also want to extend a thanks to the Amundsen Foundation, who provided a gift that enabled us to build a beautiful lecture hall on the 3rd floor, which, if you do the tour, I hope you'll see, which all of our undergraduates enjoy learning their math ABC, 1 ABC. So with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to our provost, Dave Terrell.
Thanks, Fiona, and welcome to all of you, and again, especially to Ron and Maxine. I was asked to talk about the history of this building, so I will spend a few minutes telling you about that history. And we start nearly a century ago, when research in this laboratory, just the 5th building constructed on the Caltech campus, helped to power a rapidly growing Southern California. Today, as the Ronald and Maxine Linde Hall of Mathematics and Physics, the building is again poised to enable extraordinary advances in science and technology. In the early 1920s, the Southern California Edison Company upgraded its power lines to 220,000 volts. Edison could now boast some of the highest voltage lines in the world. But the company knew that its electrical infrastructure was vulnerable, and they found power interruptions caused by equipment failures unsettlingly common at that time. Edison's technical staff sought to conduct research at 1 million volts, but there was no laboratory in the country that could do that. At that same time, George Ellery Hale realized that Caltech needed a new laboratory to establish Caltech's electrical engineering effort and capture the full attention of Robert Millikan, who had not yet agreed to leave the University of Chicago and move permanently to California. After all, who would do that? What Hale referred to as the Edison scheme grew into an important partnership. Southern California Edison helped to fund a high-voltage laboratory at Caltech with the agreement that its own scientists would also conduct research there. That laboratory, constructed in 1923, had several names over the years: the Edison High Tension Laboratory, the High Voltage Research Laboratory, but eventually everyone came to call it High Volts. The first laboratory in the country to have a reliable 1 million volt power source, High Volts was a dark and cavernous space. Built to Millikan's specifications, 50 feet high, 60 feet wide, 100 feet long, and light tight, requiring a huge steel truss to support the roof because of the absence of conventional interior support structures. Dominated by enormous electrical apparatus, the building, in the words of our late colleague and friend Jack Roberts, looked like Frankenstein's laboratory. In his oral history in the Caltech archive, Jack recalled great transformers topped with big mushroom rings that they used to shoot sparks off of. Public demonstrations in high volts attracted hundreds of people from the Pasadena community. Research in high volts would yield the first million-volt X-ray tube, developed by Charles Lauritsen and used to treat cancer patients from LA County Hospital. It was also in high volts that Lauritsen and Richard Crane in the early 1930s produced neutrons by ion beam irradiation for the first time. By the late 1950s, high volts didn't have the research and teaching space that was needed to sustain modern physics and mathematics. With support from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, High Volts was rebuilt, and on December 1st, 1960, dedicated as the Alfred P. Sloan Laboratory for Mathematics and Physics. Sloan featured new facilities and instruments for experimental physics, including a low-temperature laboratory for research on superconductivity, and brought seminar rooms, a lecture hall, a library, and for the first time, windows to what was to become the home of Caltech mathematics. Eric Temple Bell, Caltech number theorist for whom Bell polynomials and Bell numbers are named, wrote, quote, "It is the perennial youthfulness of mathematics itself which marks it off with a disconcerting immortality from the other sciences." The Sloan Laboratory served Caltech well for many years. But in time, the structure no longer matched the dynamism, the perennial youthfulness of the faculty and students it served. For its reinvigoration, we have Ron and Maxine Linde and their high voltage vision for Caltech to thank. Like High Volts and Sloan, the Linde Hall of Mathematics and Physics will help Pasadena attract and retain the brightest and most creative people in Pasadena. And like Sloan, it will spur innovation and inspire new insights across disciplines with spaces that invite discussion and foster collaboration. As renovation of the building got underway, we rediscovered the original steel roof trusses, which had been hidden from view for many years. Now the trusses are clearly visible on the third floor. I hope you'll go up and take a look. And they serve as a wonderful symbol of the central role that this structure and mathematics and physics have continued to play in the educational and research programs of the Institute. So I'll conclude with our thanks again to Ron and Maxine, and it's now my pleasure to introduce our colleague Elena Monta, Professor of Mathematics and Executive Officer, who will tell us about the importance of Linde Hall for the future of mathematics at Caltech. Elena.
Thank you. I've been asked to say a few words about the impact that the building has been having for mathematics, and I'll try. But I just want to say that already has been just a few months we're in. It's really enhanced the experience for everyone doing mathematics at Caltech, and it's been really wonderful. I think, as Fiona said, it's been transformative for us. It was clear, maybe if nothing else from the history of the building, that the building was old and it needed a model. But when a couple of years ago, the generous gift of the Linde made the project possible to remodel the building, we went in our wish list well beyond the obvious, meaning working, heating, AC, and plumbing, which doesn't break down. We really wanted like a lot of natural lights. We asked for a lot of collaboration areas to enhance the interaction between students and faculty. But we wanted a space to be quiet for concentration. And we wanted a new lecture hall. We wanted better classrooms, and not just no more ashtrays. We really wanted a space. We did have ashtrays. We wanted a space which was flexible, because mathematics has changed over time, and we really wanted our teaching to change with it. So it was a very long list, as you can see, but I'm very happy to say that everything we wanted and much more is now in Linde Hall, and we're really, really pleased with our new home. I just want to give you an idea of what life looks like in the math department now compared to before. So these terms, there are 411 students coming to this building for a math class. We have freshman calculus, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 o'clock on the lecture hall, just in case you're interested. And we have a recitation every Thursday in their classrooms. And if you come by, you will see the students and TA, they move the tables around. And they now work in groups at the tables on practice problems. But really, pretty much any time you come by, you'll see people discussing mathematics in the conference rooms or in the collaboration areas in the hallways. And it's really lively, and everybody looks excited. Before, freshman calculus was not taught in the math building because the lecture room did not accommodate it. And we did have recitations, but the classroom had not just ashtray, but fixed seatings. So we couldn't really teach in the interactive way we would like to. And the office hours or any kind of math discussion after class was held in the hallways, literally on a blackboard on the hallways. So it's a big difference. And I don't want to mean that was bad before. I mean, math department has always been a friendly place. And I really think mathematics and at Caltech has been a wonderful place to work, and I hope also for students to learn mathematics. But now the building not only has improved it, but has made it obvious to any observer. You know, visitors, prospective faculty, students, it's clear to everyone now that this is a great place to do mathematics. And so of all things, I think that, to me, is what most important, and the one this building really represents. It is a statement which is very clear that mathematics is important here at Caltech, and is relevant among the other sciences. So that's important for us. I hope it's important for students, and not so secretly, I hope it really is a good recruiting tool going forward. So we haven't had a chance to see it in practice yet. But as Fiona mentioned, we've been having some great success just over the past years, and I think the prospect of a new building really helped already. So it's my personal pleasure to speak on behalf of everybody in the math department, and thanks Ron and Maxine for their generous gift, and the Amundsen Foundation. We really, really enjoyed the new building. I think it has been brought a lot of enthusiasm and optimism to the math department. And I hope that when you get to see it inside, you will also agree that it's been a great improvement for everyone. Thank you. I guess I failed to remember to introduce you. I guess the president of Caltech doesn't really need an introduction, but it's my pleasure to pass the baton to Tom. Ross. Tom. Okay.
That's right. Dave Terrell has recounted for you the history of Linde Hall of mathematics and physics and the central role is played at the Institute. In my brief remarks, which can never do full justice to the impact of Ron and Maxine Linde's generosity, vision, and love for Caltech, I want to underscore the relationship between architecture and collaboration, especially in the context of mathematics. Paul Erdős, the peripatetic Hungarian mathematician, viewed math as a social practice and worked with more than 500 collaborators. It is to him that the Erdős number refers, the collaborative distance between a mathematician and Erdős as measured in degrees of co-authorship. His motto was, another roof, another proof, as he traveled between the homes of his many collaborators. Linde Hall is certain to be the source of many consequential mathematical proofs, but is not just another roof. In the words of the great architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, architecture is the will of an epoch translated into space, living, changing, new. This new gathering place surrounds faculty, postdocs, students, and visitors in living space where ideas can ferment, collaborations are natural, even inescapable, and the energy is palpable. These laudable qualities that characterize Linde Hall, a fount of evocative ideas, a space for dynamic exchanges, and a community of shared discovery, cannot be separated from interactions with Ron and Maxine themselves. The joy that they take in original solutions that emerge from collaborations with colleagues is manifest as they work to improve Caltech and elevate the Institute community. It is living, changing, and new, but also constant in its focus, its expression of long-held values, and its appreciation of beauty. The Linde number, coined here today, the Linde number will mark the myriad mathematics and physics breakthroughs that come from Ron and Maxine Linde's investment in Caltech's future. And without further ado, let me introduce Ron and Maxine.
Well, since I already am getting to speak, and I was really concerned that this was part of another puzzle that I had to solve to gain entrance to the building. And so I think I'm going to be off the hook. As I'd mentioned a few years ago at the Caltech Finance Symposium, Maxine lets me speak for both of us at all Caltech events because she gets to speak for both of us whenever we're alone. Now, as it turns out, last week, it was actually a week ago today, we had dinner in Phoenix at an Asian fusion restaurant. And this being Caltech, I know you, at least most of you are aware of the predictive value of fortune cookies. So I want to, and it didn't predict that the rain was going to come. And thank you, Tom, for arranging for it to stop. But the fortune is, it's actual fortune, a great day lies ahead in the not-too-distant future. And so we figured that won't necessarily attribute it to cause and effect, but we thought it was very poetic. Appreciate the kind comments that all of you have made, but it's really Maxine and I that must thank Caltech. Thank Caltech for providing us with such wonderful opportunities to make a difference by doing things of which the effect will continue to benefit the world long after we're departed from the world. And that's very important. And not every place you could think of where you might give philanthropy would qualify for that statement fundamentally. And it's even better when whatever you might do, however you might employ your resources, whether they be physical resources or intellectual resources, that whatever we might do can help to enable many others, many outstanding people, to improve their progress towards ultimate positive impact on the world and, of course, its inhabitants. And do it in a way that will go on and on and on. So what you're really doing is you're getting a multiplier effect, actually in many aspects a compounding effect. And so you have enormous impact through Caltech's expertise, remarkable people. In fact, you might say, well, why Caltech? Because there are lots of institutions. And to set aside our own long, personal, close relationship with Caltech, which is very important, of course, but setting that aside, it is the remarkable people who do remarkable things that is one of the factors. And it's a combination of factors, really, that come together with Caltech. And Caltech also is very agile, dynamic, aggressive, highly ethical, determined, and Caltech is willing to take large risks to advance objectives that are going to be important to the world. And those risks are taken judiciously. They're debated. It's not just rolling the dice. But you combine those factors and many other attributes that Caltech has that make it, in our experience, really a one-of-a-kind institution. So that's why Caltech, it's part of the reason why Caltech, other than that, happened to go to graduate school here, so we knew something about Caltech, but why we have sought to form the long-term close relationship. So then next question would be, well, why mathematics? Why choose this project? And I'll give you a slightly lengthy answer on that. But Maxine and I, of course, have always had a great love of mathematics, the sheer beauty of it, the purity, the poetry, the pervasiveness, the profundity, even the philosophical implications. And as some of you know, Maxine did her undergraduate work in mathematics, and when she worked at JPL while I was in grad school here, it was in a field that at the time, as the disciplines were defined, was an applied mathematics role. But that's very nice, but that's not the reason why we decided to undertake this as our next project for Caltech. What happened is we felt it was time to, because we have a long-term commitment to Caltech, and that it was time to undertake another project. And so we approached Brian Lee and said, you know, as part of the campaign, you know, what within the size range that we feel we're positioned to undertake now, what are the possible projects of priority? And he had a long list of things, and all of them sounded interesting, and I guess if they didn't sound interesting, they shouldn't have been on the list in the first place. But at any rate, we looked at them and we said, you know, a number of good things here. So tell us what are really the highest priorities, and what are the ones that are going to be most difficult to fund on a timely basis? And so Brian said he'd go back and check, and spoke with Tom, and he reported back that you know, there were a number of things, but and I should add that we had proposed also a thought that we had been maybe a center for new initiatives would be good. And while that was just something we proposed, it wasn't on the list. But he reported back that yes, Tom really likes that idea, and Ed Stolper really likes that idea, and but you know, these, and there were 3 projects, so that was one of them. The Sloan renovation was another one, and the HSS leadership chair was another one. And so we started to dig in further, and part of that digging in, we set up to visit with Fiona, and so we had a visit with Fiona and Vlad Markovich and Jim Coral, and we toured the building, and that was probably the most effective sales job we had ever encountered. And then thinking about you know, the importance of mathematics to Caltech. It's vital in every division. It's a vital part of the education of every student. It's important to be able to attract outstanding people who will further Caltech's reputation, and Caltech has built up to be a leader in the field, particularly in the areas within the field that it's chosen to pursue. But you have to, we're still relatively small, and so if people start to leave, you can really be hurt. And so not only do we want to retain people, but we want to introduce new blood, attract new people. And so it became vital in our minds that Caltech not only get this going right away, but that Caltech demonstrate in a very tangible way its commitment to mathematics. Because you can talk about how important it is, et cetera, but then you look at the conditions, and and not not to demonstrate that, actually is to demonstrate the opposite in terms of the message that you send. So I remember as we left that meeting and that tour, saying to Maxine, you know, that this building is, a lot of great things have happened over the past 9+ decades, but I sure hope if we get to be that old, we'll be in better shape than this building. But then the other areas were very important too. And because that's not the topic for today, I won't go into HSS, but it had some very pressing things that need to be done. And so we thought about it, had some further conversations with Brian for some details, and spoke with Ed Stolper and got some good perspective. And so we were thinking, well, maybe it wasn't in the plan, and we're not really positioned for that. But maybe we should undertake two things. And so it was going to be Sloan renovation and HSS leadership chair. For those not familiar with the leadership chairs, that gives discretionary funds to the chair of the division to use, it's purely discretionary, but largely to seed new ideas and new things. And so make a long story short, but with a slight digression, because I want to use it both to particularly thank Ed Stolper and also to illustrate something about Caltech. Condensing some conversations and paraphrasing Ed, I said to Ed, we were on the phone, and I said, you know, they're all three good things. We can't do all three. Maybe we can do a couple of them. And we'd had earlier conversations, and we're agonizing a bit. So I was going to have a kind of a last round with Ed in terms of going through the rationale. And when I said that we can't do all three, Ed being Ed, but paraphrasing him, he said, yes, you can. But Ed actually had an idea in mind. He'd been thinking about it, and it was fairly complex to work out, but how we could set up the Center for New Initiatives, make Sloan the first project, still leave some room for other initiatives that needed to be seeded, and of course do Sloan. And that's ultimately the way it wound up. So thank you, Ed, for making this possible. And also, as for Caltech, we all know, thinks outside the box, as the saying goes, when it comes to science and technology. But here's a case where in making that happen, Caltech was actually thinking outside the box in terms of not doing things in exactly the standard way in things that aren't science and technology. So at any rate, we feel that some of the attributes of Caltech, such as being on the forefront of the fields that it pursues, and in fact, not only being on the forefront, but playing a big role in creating the forefronts. Delving into areas bravely, that these things all come back to what can be accomplished with this building. Maxine and I, while we had toured the building a couple of times during construction, and could envision what it might look like. But when we came into town Tuesday afternoon, we couldn't resist rushing over here and sneaking in. And first of all, from the depressing atmosphere, it was immediately a joyful atmosphere. And it really, well, in fact, for those of you who haven't toured it yet, you're in for a treat. It really is. But it's also an atmosphere that is inspiring. And when we looked at the different areas, the breakout areas, the offices, tried not to peek in any offices where people were in there, but when we did that, and then we thought about the long history of Sloan and how well it has served Caltech, and the remarkable people who have received part of their educations in this building, and the remarkable developments that have emerged from the building. And then we started to look at this collaborative atmosphere, something I sure wish when I was in grad school we had something like this, and start to dream about all the remarkable people that are going to get parts of their education in this building, and all the remarkable developments that are going to either be seated in or emerge from this building, or both. It's really thrilling to contemplate. So what I'd like to do now, just one personal note. I have to pick up on something that Tom said at the board meeting. And he announced, just I think so people can try to monitor my age as I grow older, but he announced that it was my birthday today. And I can tell you that it sounds like an oxymoron, but it actually was an occurrence of accidental planning. But I've cut many birthday ribbons in my many years, or untied them, but never one as elegant as this, and never one with something of such importance behind it. And so let's get to it.
So please, if all the speakers could come up, we'll cut the ribbon. As it turns out, because of the history of this building, they're going to hook us up to a big generator, and the spark will come. No, it's more conventional.
Now, I just want to know, so we can be discreet, have our mics been activated yet, and everything we say is broadcast?
This is under full disclosure principles right now.
Okay,
right?
But I had to ask for the disclosure. So.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So I think we first have to pose for the ritual.
Yeah, there we go.
Are we all in?
But please don't slice yet.
Don't slide.
Everybody look at me and smile. All right, here we go. 1, 2, right. 1, 2, 3. All right. And now, President, you're going to count down.
Right, I'll go 1, 2, 3, cut. And we all go on cut. Do we all have that? Okay, 1, 2, 3, cut. What a team. Very good. So that was a beautiful birthday ribbon.
Wasn't.
I have no idea what happens now. But I've lost my seat. I apparently don't get to sit.
Oh, they're wet. I was going to give you a souvenir ribbon to tie around your neck.
It's okay.
Ron, sorry, one more small surprise.
Oh.
I figure you're honored to That's for you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I thought the surprise was the puzzle, and
No, that's
so I was thinking, oh no, I thought it was off the hook. But
no, this is last time you broke the door, and this time you'll open.
oh,
Okay.
good, yeah. So this is how you boarded up the door after I broke it, huh?
Yes, I think this should be a proxy card, just for.
Oh, this?
This
oh.
is a real.
Oh, do you just hold it up or slide it?
Sorry, I think they want.
Oh, okay, do it, but don't fall off the stairs, right? Document this for litigation. Okay. Oh, you want to see this? I won't hide, Maxine. Okay.
What?
Yeah, we'll keep it low so you're not hidden.
Over this way. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Wow. Did you know that one was coming?
I knew I was supposed to be on the bottom.
Okay, and with that, we conclude the official part of the dedication. We'd like to invite you up to a reception over here in the portico and a tour of the building. And I want to point out that we have, I understand we have representatives from Caltech facilities and the architects, HOK, and the contractor Hathaway Dinwiddie. So if you want to know what any of the art in the building means and discuss the design, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that with you. And without further ado, please join us for the reception.